What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of National Pastime. John and Toaster here to recap week 6 for you. It's the first week of this NFL season that included bye weeks, so significantly less games to get through. Also, just for the record, a bunch of really shitty games. so, obviously, we'll give you the takes, but I'm not going to have a lot to say about Indy and Houston. I'm actually not even sure that game happened. I just think the final score appeared somewhere. But we'll get into all that as we go. As always, we'll start with the Thursday night game as it kicked off our primetime parlay. Tampa at Philly. Final is 28-22.
Final is bullshit.
Depending on what side of the bet you were on. The final could have been awesome, could have been bullshit. But 28-22 Tampa. It was a 7-point spread. Philly covers. We'll maybe get to that part of it in a second. My first question off the bat from this game for you is, where
How many
are
drinks
you
did I have
on
that night? Oh,
yeah. Well, before the game or after the game? Where are you on Jalen Hurts?
I have in my notes that there's 8 teams right now that should trade for Deshaun Watson while his value is at its lowest. Like why they're not competing with other teams for his value. Because right now you look at what the draft class is next year, and that's a lost year for you anyways. If you look at what Zach Wilson's doing, Trevor Lawrence is doing, Mac Jones is doing acceptably, but Fields, Lance, there's not, it's not like you're coming in and being a barn burner. There's no Andrew Luck in this draft that just gets you to excel next year. So I think that it's a lost year either way. And they have 3, as of right now, top 10 draft picks. There's 2 teams that right now control 5 of the top 10 draft picks. It's I believe it's the Jets and the Eagles right now, right?
Yep.
Jets want to think that they don't need a quarterback, so trade those picks right now while they're at their highest and accept a lost year. They don't probably want Hurts in return anyways, so you can still see what he does next year if assuming Watson doesn't play. And maybe Hurts' value comes back, but you're still way better off with Watson than you are with Hurts. And again, this is football talk. I want to be very clear on that. This has nothing to do with society, personal things. You can be a piece of shit human being, but the NFL showed over and over again that if you're a talented human being, you can still find a place in the NFL, as unfortunate as that may be, right? But sure. He was abysmal, quite frankly.
He looked like yes, he was. His final stat line is not kind on the eyes. He was 12 of 26 for 115 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, but he did a lot of the things that he has continued to do, which has kept them in games. He had 3 big time throws. His average depth of target was 11. So, he's gunning for those big plays, and, it's been the case. And obviously the rushing ability too,
2 more rushing touchdowns,
2 rushing touchdowns. You can't remove that from the conversation when you're talking about him. But
what we also can't remove is the fact that they didn't even have 100 yards of offense going into the 4th quarter.
Right. And then all of a sudden, the game opens up a little bit. You're playing a little more freely. Maybe the defense relaxes, and he gets you, and it makes it a game. And
all of a sudden, the NFL is scripted. I mean, we saw that. We've seen this time and time again. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not getting into the conspiracy theories on that one. But no, it's exactly your point that the defense plays differently when they've got a cushion like they do. And it opened things up. How they only had 1 rush from Miles Sanders in the first half is absolutely a fireable offense to me from Sirianni, because this is not the first game where this has been an issue. I think he only had 3 rushes in the first half in a game 2 weeks ago. Run the damn ball. Get some pressure off of Hurts. Give them something else to think about. And I'm saying this as somebody who would be on the opposite side, sans Leonard Fournette this last game, but the Buccaneers offense is just so prolific as a passing team that if your running game's not working, I don't care. Don't throw it,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you've got Tom Brady,
Well,
you've
you
got
have
Chris
Brady. Yeah.
Godwin, Evans, Brown. Hopefully Gronkowski's back soon for their sake. It's a completely different scenario, right? But in this, when you've got Jalen Hurts, you need the option for Hurts to hurt you on the ground as well. So maybe you fake a handoff to Sanders and run Hurts on a naked bootleg, right? Like, be creative, do something, but you need that threat from Miles Sanders that if they're only going to run once in the entire first half, that's just, like I said, fireable to me.
Yeah. You want them to use his legs, like you said, creatively and not just rely on it from, okay, we're going to drop you back. And if the play breaks down, scramble, right? He still doesn't look comfortable playing from the pocket. And we talk about all the time that you need to be able to do that in order to have long-term success in the NFL. And I just, he's just such a tough eval for me because he's so talented and he keeps you in games. He makes big plays. He can win you games. I think with a better game plan, I think with better talent around him, he can get you to the playoffs. I don't think he takes you much further than that necessarily, which is why he might just be a nice to have when
Another
he's on a
guy.
rookie deal. But
Yep.
then as soon as that rookie deal's up, you need to move on. And we know that you're not really afforded that luxury. You always have to move on sooner rather than later.
Exactly. That's the problem in this league, is
Yeah.
that once you find somebody that might be that guy, they ultimately get paid. Like Kirk Cousins, 84 million, 3-year guaranteed contract because he was good enough, right? And do you
Good
really want to
enough.
be in that situation where you're giving Hurts a second contract because you're like, we don't trust what else is out there, so this is our
Right.
best shot.
Yeah. So, and to keep in mind, we talked about it, I think, a couple weeks ago with him. It's still very early in his career. He hasn't even started a full 16 games, or I guess
A full
17
17 games.
games. Yeah. So he doesn't even have a season's worth of starts yet under his belt. I don't think he's a finished product. He has improved in certain areas, but it's unfortunately you don't get time to eval more than really a couple years with these guys. And he's going to be in his third year as a second round pick. He only has 4 years on his rookie deal. So then you have to make a decision really a year earlier than you even would with a first round pick. So it's tough. But he keeps them in this game, and which
Yeah,
leads me
I
to
mean
the
that.
parlay here. You
Yeah.
cannot convince me that these guys do not know what the spreads of these games are, because either Nick Sirianni is just an asshole and wanted to screw over everyone who had Bucks -7 or -6.5,
100% that's what
or
it was.
or
100%.
he has no idea how to do math, which I'm not fully buying into. So,
Well, I
if
mean,
you
we talked
weren't
about it on the
watching,
last podcast that, I mean, technically going for 2 is a positive point return value, right? If you look at the
yes,
percentage of converting 1 point versus the percentage of converting 2 points, but that's a situation where that was 100% an FU to the league, saying, "Oh, you thought that we were down 28-7 and we were just gonna roll over. Nope.
yeah.
Take your under."
Yeah, well, and I think the other piece of that too is, yes, going for 2 is the smart move from a mathematics standpoint, maybe a game theory standpoint to some degree, but late in the game like this, where if you don't get it, now you're down 8 and you're forced to go for 2 potentially the next time if you do get the ball back, and that just makes it that much harder. So it wasn't the right move in that
And
moment.
how much time they took off the clock in getting that touchdown too. There was no
Yeah.
urgency. Like,
No.
it didn't look like they were playing to win the game at that point. And crazy enough, they were still in it. Like, it's what they were able to, I'm not gonna say lock down Tom Brady in the second half, but going for it on that 4th and 2 to me just was kind of again, a little bit of a scripted, let's make this more interesting type of deal,
Mhm.
rather than
Mhm.
they didn't need to go for the jugular there, right? Like,
No.
they had the offense for the Eagles hadn't done anything the entire night. That it just didn't make much sense to me. So, like I said, I'm not going full conspiracy theory here, but there was a Hail Mary at the end of the second half or the first half in the Cleveland game. I mean, Dallas, New England went to overtime. We had another overtime game with Minnesota. I don't know. I don't know, Jim.
I don't know, Jim. All right. Well, I'm not necessarily buying into that quite yet, although there was some weird shit this week. But I want to get off this game on this last point. I've got another insane Brady stat of the week for you. You ready for this one?
Okay.
All right. So this game was the 112th time in Tom Brady's career that he's attempted at least 40 passes in a game. He was 34 of 42, which is 81% completion percentage. This is the first one of those games in which he's completed at least 80% of his passes. At 44 years old, he's done this 112 times. We're talking about the greatest quarterback ever, and he's never completed. Not that that's easy to complete 80% of 40 plus pass attempts, but wild that we're getting this from him in year 50. Like
it was only at 5.6 yards for average depth of target, which probably helped the percentage a bit. The Eagles are playing off coverage, giving them the underneath, and Brady was willing to take it. I mean, happily willing to take it. That was most of his career in New England. So I'm not sure why that was the strategy, but you can question all you want when you say, oh, we only lost by 6 instead of 40.
Right. All right. Moving on.
Moving on to other conspiracies. Seahawks Steelers.
Is that where you want to go next? We can go Seahawks Steelers next.
Don't we go in order of the parlay?
Yeah, we can hit the parlay games first. I think that's probably smart. Okay. So Seattle at Pittsburgh. Geno Smith gets the start. Russell Wilson gets put on IR on Saturday. Seattle loses to Pittsburgh 23-20. I would say that the Geno Smith experience hasn't started off as, all that well. And I'm just curious at what point we get a DK Metcalf meltdown because Geno can't get him the ball.
Oh gosh, is Geno going to get punched in the face again?
Tell you what, if he gets punched by DK, his career might be done because that dude is a machine. On the plus side here, Seattle is going to get at least a 3-week look at what life looks like without Russell Wilson. So I don't know if that's going to help Russ's chances of coming back, or Russ is going to say, yep, fuck you guys. I'm out. You deserve this. But what other takeaways do you have from this one?
I don't completely agree with Mike Tomlin on that review at the end of the game being absolutely dreadful, but it was absolutely dreadful. Like, why it was clearly a catch. That was a fucking fantastic punch. I mean, talking about KOs here, TJ Watt was a freaking excuse me, on borderline assault mode in that first quarter, and then seals the game with that Geno Smith fumble. To me, the biggest takeaway is this is why you pay TJ Watt and you don't pay Jamal Adams.
Yeah. I saw
after the ball in.
Yeah. After he looked the ball off his face, I think I saw somebody say that Jamal Adams couldn't catch COVID at a Florida rave. And I don't think that's the kind of thing you want being said about your $18 million a year safety.
And this was after his intro, which I understand it was an homage to somebody that had passed away, but calling himself, the greatest in the nation or the best in the nation. And to have that game still 0 sacks, but not only 0 sacks, 0 hurries and 0 QB hits this season. No interceptions.
Yeah. Oh, I know. It's been an absolute disaster. And at one point in this game, they even just had him straight up line up as the D end. And he got picked up by a tackle and got a chip block from like a tight end on the play. And he's like, had no chance getting to the quarterback. Like, that's not, if you are going to use him to rush the passer, that is not how you do it.
Right.
And I mean, Seattle is in trouble. Like, Russ not playing is, I think, and they were down Chris Carson this game as well. But it's going to expose this team for what it is. I know Pittsburgh had a nice win last week against Denver, but Pittsburgh, I think, is pretty well established, not a good team, right?
You were, I mean, you were on point with the corpse of Ben Roethlisberger. He went 19 for 19 with a touchdown on passes under 10 yards. His yards per attempt when he was passing for 10 yards or plus was 4.3 yards per attempt. He was 10 of 21 for 91 yards and no touchdowns, no interceptions. I'm not going to say that there weren't a couple of zip throws on that. Like, he had a couple of ropes, but he needs the time. And then watching him move around in the pocket, like his throws on the run were absolutely dreadful. He's not there anymore. This isn't the answer. He didn't fake a boob injury this time, so I guess they won, right? There was no reason to fake a boob injury, but they needed 44% of the plays went through Najee Harris. That's their offense, and when you have a defense that is able to shut down Najee, that offense is going to be done. I mean, it's Ben Roethlisberger's not going to challenge you. This was the worst defense in the league, and they only got 350 yards against them. It was a sad performance all around. I wish that we actually do have flex scheduling right now. I don't know why well, actually I do know why. Unfortunately, you need to flex the week before the games are done. So since Russ was injured that game, there was not an option to flex this out, even though my call was for the Cardinals Browns, and that would have been even a worse game.
Yeah, no kidding. And we can get to that one maybe in a second. Any last thoughts on the Seattle-Pittsburgh game before we hit on our other two primetime parlay games here?
No, let's move on to the plus 29 Chargers against the Ravens. So that was a push, I believe.
Yep. Yeah.
Way no, I want to apologize to the fan base. I told you that we do this, or maybe it's just me. I don't want to speak for you. I don't want to pick the games that are known blowouts. So Indy versus Houston, that even at that spread didn't appeal to me, just because I don't want you, the viewers, to say, oh, I want to watch this game. Same thing with the Rams versus the I don't even know if they're actually the Giants. This is like the B League team at this point, right?
They're the little Giants.
Exactly. And so those are actually things that I play into my own parlay off to the side, but I wanted an interesting game for everybody, and I forgot. West Coast team going east,
traveling east,
early morning game. I actually did that this weekend, and I can completely see where that hangover happened, because I was not ready. Even at 1 p.m. it was just, the timing's weird, and the Chargers just did not show up.
Yeah, that's a great point about West Coast team going east and all that stuff. This, to me, was really nothing more than just kind of a fluke, like unexpected stinker from Herbert and the Chargers. And the other element of this too was, this was really just stylistically, offense and defense matchup, a bad matchup for LA. Like the Chargers we talked about it before. They want to play in that too high shell. They want to invite you to run the ball. They don't really have the best personnel to stop the run, schematic, like without scheming something up, right? They've got Bosa, but he gets after the passer, and you're not really geared, like their team isn't set up to stop the run. Baltimore obviously is one of the best rushing teams in the league. They popped off for 187 rushing yards. Lamar really didn't have to do anything in this game. I think it was just a combination of the travel is a little fluky, bad matchup, and the Ravens starting to find their rhythm a little bit. I'm not going to read into this one too much. But
They got two DBs back. I was not expecting the offense from the Chargers to be shut down quite like this. That's the same thing I said against the Browns. And
yeah,
actually, I think there's no moral victories. Bill Belichick will tell you that when we get to the next leg of the parlay. But the Chargers, we knew that they weren't going to be effective against the run. And then the other aspect of it was they didn't execute on their fourth downs, and that's what we said was their record is what it is because they were able to get maybe questionable penalties on fourth down, but early they were down 14-0, failed on a 4th and 3, and that's you need those positive plays to keep you in the game. And the game script just from a very, very early on did not work in their favor, and that's what has been holding up the Ravens for the past 3 years at this point, right? Is positive game flow where they can run the ball effectively. And no, I want to apologize to the viewers for that one. I wanted a good game for you all to watch, and I think that most people thought it would be a good game to watch. And I mean, how the over didn't hit on this one, even with the Ravens scoring 34, is absolutely insane.
Yeah, no, this was a wild one. I'm not sure. Like I said, there's much to take away from it. Herbert's been balling. This was kind of his first bad game of the year, and the Chargers will regroup and they'll move on. They'll be fine here. But it just kind of added to the slate of just really bad games, frankly, throughout the week. So, all right, well, let's move to the game that I picked as my bonus, the Dallas Cowboys at the New England Patriots. Cowboys end up covering, and we'll get to how that happened in a second here. They win 35-29. They were 3.5-point favorites when we made our picks on Wednesday. This game did not play out how I expected it to play out. I honestly thought Dallas was kind of going to boat race these guys. New England was ahead in this game. Mac Jones really looks like he's hitting his stride. He was 15 of 21, 229 yards, which is almost 11 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns. His 1 interception, which was returned for a touchdown, wasn't his fault. He had 3 big time throws.
That was a quid pro quo. Again, back to the script with Trayvon Diggs.
Yep. Got it. Okay. He had 3 big time throws, 0 turnover worthy plays. I mean, he looks like he's starting to find his rhythm here. And, Dallas isn't an imposing defense by any means, but, I think
a much improved defense for sure compared to last.
Very much so. But I mean, Max he's doing what I don't know. Like he kind of was supposed to do, right?
I think he's playing it to PFF. It's kind of like knowing who your boss is. I mean, he was the second rated passer in that game. And I mean, you're talking about a 15 for 21, 229 yard line with an interception. And somehow he's the second rated passer per PFF. So I think he's just what we said.
He makes good decisions.
Executes, right?
Yeah. He executes and he's getting more comfortable pushing the ball, not down the field necessarily with like deep, 20 plus yard
or 75
throws,
plus yards, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. But like in that intermediate range, that 10 to 19 yard range, he's getting more comfortable throwing into NFL windows. And I think all of these guys are having an adjustment right now where they're maybe a tick slow because they're gun shy when something doesn't look as open as it used to look to them in college
at Alabama.
Right. So, he's adjusting, and, I like what we're seeing from him. Obviously that pick 6 was a bit of a killer, but the immediate busted coverage back on the other end,
well, that's what I'm saying.
It was
Trayvon Diggs is his college teammate, and he said, "Okay, how about I throw you? Let's get you tied for the record in interceptions, and then 2 plays later, how about you undercut something?" I think there definitely should have been safety cover. There was safety coverage over the top, and it got busted. So I can't completely shit on Trayvon Diggs, but that's kind of been the knock on him so far, is that it's a home run or a long fly ball with him, right? Like
Right. Oh, yeah.
he's going for the splash play each time, and right now it's been better than it has been worse. But that's something that he's going to need to clean up and be a little bit more conservative, probably long term, if he's going to be successful in this league. But I mean, 7 interceptions through 6 games, 6 straight games with interceptions. That's impressive.
It's impressive. Yeah. I think he'll start to get attacked by better quarterbacks and better game plans, that you'll see a lot more double moves targeted at him, I think, to take advantage of some of that. But yeah, what he's doing right now is great. And then, Dak just keeps rolling. 445 yards, 3 more
Most
touchdowns.
most
What'd you
yards
say?
most yards ever given up by Bill Belichick led defense. So I mean,
Wow.
Dak's balling.
Yeah, Dak's balling. So he had the most big time throws in the league this week. I mean, frankly, his MVP campaign is like full steam ahead right now. And I really think the only quarterback playing better than him is Tom Brady. Um, would you agree with that?
I These are where stats get tough. I think if you were to give me a quarterback right now and say who do you want to win the game, I would take Tom Brady. If you ask me who would be putting up the most stats, being the most signed, putting potential defensive liability in the best place to win, I would say Dak, just because he's explosive enough. I mean, we are also talking about having a absolutely amazing supporting cast for him as well, though, right? With Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb,
For sure.
Zeke Elliott. I would still take Brady over him, but I think that Dak's got just the ability to move around the pocket. He's got arm strength. He's got accuracy. He's got everything that
Yeah.
you'd want. I would
He's
take either of
executing at
these.
such a high level right
Yeah.
now. I mean, he's accurate to all levels of the field. He's moving safeties with his eyes. Like he knows he's in full command of that offense. And
Yeah.
it's been a lot of fun to watch. This was a really good game. So I joked about this Dallas covering initially. So this game goes to overtime. All Dallas needs is a field goal to seal the game, and CeeDee Lamb gets open deep and scores a touchdown to ultimately help Dallas cover
Yeah.
the spread here. So
Yeah.
I was the
No safety
beneficiary
over the
of.
top on that one was. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not saying again they were gonna most likely win the game on that, but they had the same. It looked like they had a very similar play called about 3 or 4 plays earlier. Called a timeout, and then they saw it without coverage over the top. And I mean, Jalen Mills on CeeDee Lamb. Yeah, that's not a great matchup. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, the probably the kicker to me for taking Brady over Prescott right now is the TB12 health regimen, because Dak's in a walking boot right now. So hopefully that calf injury is not serious on that last play, but status is looking optimistic per the last report I read for
Yeah.
week 8, but it's, that would be a huge blow to that Cowboys offense.
No, absolutely. I mean, their backup situation, we pointed out in the preseason, is one of the worst in the league. So, we'll fingers crossed Dak ends up playing. It seems like he's going to. But Dallas keeps rolling, and they keep themselves in the conversation, at the top of your power rankings there. So, all right, that does it for all of our parlay games. Where do you want to go next here?
Let's go to London.
Let's go to London. All right, love it. So we exported another shitty NFL game to the Brits. We send Tua and the Dolphins to take on Jacksonville, and Jacksonville pulls it out 23-20. I'll let you kick us off here because I have a few few points I want to make after that.
I'm so disappointed in what we are doing to you. I'm sorry for all of our. I don't know that we actually have London listeners yet. I think we got one from Germany and one from Yugoslavia, but I mean, 2 false starts in the first 3 plays. Like, this is a team I actually have family that's from from the area, and they don't understand football a lot of time because they're like, well, they just stand around for 40 minutes of the game while they're actually playing 20 minutes of the game, right? And
Right.
so these false start penalties, these execution things, how are they supposed to learn when that's going on, as well as the just absolutely terrible game management? I feel like I don't know who Urban Meyer thinks is in the draft next year and why he thinks he's going to be on the team next year to draft that high. But it looked to me like both of them were trying to lose, Brian Flores and Urban Meyer. Going forward on 4th and 2 in a position where you're set up to lose the game versus
Mm-hmm.
win the game is a
Mm-hmm.
very different scenario. That was a terrible play call, in my opinion, to not go up by 7 points and at least secure that you get one more possession, right?
Yeah.
I'm all for being aggressive. I think that you should be aggressive, but you can't be aggressive to your own detriment there. Even if you pick up the 4th down, then you still need to execute on the touchdown, or else you just took that risk to kick a field goal and end up at the same position you are. And then Brian Flores burned 2 timeouts that would have won them the game on consecutive challenges on
Mm-hmm.
2 that he was absolutely going to lose. Like, there was just nothing. You took one look at those and say these are not overturnable. The first one was even more
Yeah.
egregious than the second one on the muffed fumble, or the muffed fumble. But they were trying to lose this game, and I don't
Yeah.
understand why.
Yeah, I think Brian Flores is maybe getting exposed a little bit. When he first took over that job, Miami fought hard. I think they played a lot better initially than people thought they would. And it looked like, okay, they've got a solid coach, going to bring a solid culture. They get their guy in Tua, so they thought, which hindsight now drafting Tua over Justin Herbert is looking like a very big
Not looking great.
mistake. Tua wasn't awful in this game. He had some moments. When he's in rhythm, he's smooth. He looks good. You can tell the arm strength is always going to be somewhat of a concern with him. He just doesn't have the ability to make plays when he's not doesn't have his feet solidly under him. But my takeaway here, we talked about Philly earlier having 3 picks in the top 10. Currently, the pick that they own that is 3rd overall is from Miami trading up to get Jalen Waddle in this year's draft. So, you know what? At least you have Jalen Waddle, I guess.
Well, and
Good
that's
for
I mean,
you.
one of the 2 people that Tua can rely on at this point. I get that they also were missing 2 receivers. They had their 2 top cornerbacks down. I mean, there's basically $150 million worth of contracts on the sideline just in their defensive backfield at that point. And the Jaguar, that's why I say this isn't a statement game for the Jaguars. I mean, they were barely able to eke it out against a decimated bad team.
Yes, for sure. So there was a very interesting, weird stat that came out of this game. Trevor Lawrence broke a streak that has been going on for players selected number 1 overall that goes all the way back to 2017. Every player from 2017 till now that was drafted number 1 overall, that includes Myles Garrett, that includes Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and Joe Burrow. All of those guys' first non-loss was a tie, if you can
Really?
believe it. Every single one of those guys' first non-loss was a tie, and Trevor breaks the streak with the win in this game. Joe Burrow tied the Eagles, Kyler tied the Lions, and then the Browns in consecutive years got their first non-loss as a tie against the Steelers. Baker in 2018, Garrett in 2017. So
We should have taken the ties to London. They love that shit.
That's true, right? A tie
God.
would have been perfect for those
Yeah.
fans. They would have known they would have been like, okay, so how many points is that worth on the table?
So on aggregate, what do we do?
Right.
No,
Are they
but I mean,
coming
it's
back next week? Yeah.
yeah. So it's time to move the Jags to London. That's the only place they can win. They're actually 500 in London. They've played there every year besides the COVID year since 2013. And the other major takeaway I had on this, just because we've got a lot to cover, is give the ball to fucking James Robinson and don't waste your pick on Travis Etienne, because he's the value pick there. I know we've hit on it multiple times, but keep giving him the rock, and he's a fucking all-star. Like, why? It makes no sense to me, that pick, even more, especially with the issues that they've had on the line. That I don't recall specifically what was there, 6 months ago at this point from a line perspective, but there had to be greater value picks than Travis Etienne at that point, because James Robinson can do what needs to get done, and that's all you need out of the running back position.
Every time that fool breaks off a run, you're like, oh, that the Travis Etienne pick looks worse and worse and worse. So yeah, I agree with you there. All right, I want to get to the Cardinals and Browns, and I think I've got to do a bit of a brain dump to get us into this game. Our Arizona friends were not so happy with me in a text chain yesterday because I wasn't jumping up and down, excited about this win for the Cardinals necessarily. I will give you the why.
Left and right, like DeAndre Hopkins actually taking a 2-yard Murray pass for a touchdown.
Yeah, that was fucking impressive. That was one of the more impressive touchdowns I've seen in a little while. But of course, Hop, just that's what he does.
Hop to the left, hop to the right.
So here's my thought process here, though. I go into each game sort of with this question in mind of, what am I going to learn from this game? Like, what are the things I'm looking for that I'm going to have a takeaway from this game? I don't think, given the circumstances of everything that went down. So I tweeted earlier in the week that I thought that a Cardinals win would be more impressive this week than it would have been against the Rams, their win against the Rams, strictly because of the coaching, COVID issues, and how they were going to navigate that was going to be challenging no matter what. But the Browns then Nick Chubb gets ruled out. The Browns have both their starting tackles ruled out. Within this game, they had Kareem Hunt get hurt. They had Baker Mayfield get hurt for a minute.
That was in the fourth quarter, to be fair.
It was in the fourth quarter, for sure. Same with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. He went down in the fourth. But all these things sort of played into this just being like, I felt like we got robbed from just a pure football fan standpoint of getting to see a good game because of all the surrounding circumstances. Like when the Cardinals beat the Rams, this was a game that I kind of circled and was like, okay, this is going to be a game that if the Cardinals can come out and put up against the Browns, this is going to be a statement. I don't think it was a statement given everything that played out, especially the way that the game script ended up going. We questioned what the Browns would do when they couldn't keep the game manageable, couldn't run the ball, couldn't do play action, couldn't do all this stuff, and they had to rely on Baker to create for them. And we found out in this game so that's my one takeaway from this game is any questions that we had about whether Baker Mayfield was worth whatever contract he's about to get from Cleveland, very likely to get from Cleveland. I think the answer is he's not worth it. Maybe the flip side of this is because Kyler Murray played great once again. Kyler is going to be worth whatever extension they want to throw his way. I just don't think between all of those circumstances, the drops that were had, I mean, Odell Beckham had a drop in the fourth quarter that cost the Browns points, turnovers, really weird penalties. Like there's that one roughing the passer on Kyler that I'm still not even sure what happened. All of those things,
Lamar's looking at him like, oh, he's a passer and I'm not.
Yeah, I just don't understand. Like, I just don't think we got a true glimpse as to whether this was like a barometer game for the Cardinals, right? We know they're good. I'm not saying they're not good. No one's saying they're not good. They're great. I mean, I think they're one of the 3 to 5 best teams in the league, but we have to adjust what our expectations of this team are now. And it's not just for them to be good. It's not just for them to win, to be over 500 and make the playoffs. Like they're being judged on a completely different scale now than they were earlier in the year. And what I want to see, what I'm anxious to see is, okay, are they going to be able to handle a tough environment against a good team in a playoff-esque atmosphere? And I feel like we got robbed of that because of everything else here. That's not to say that the Cardinals didn't do what they needed to do in this game. And, they beat the hell out of the Browns for sure. And I didn't necessarily expect it to this level, but this game said more about Baker Mayfield to me and the Browns and the current situation this week than it really said about the Cardinals. So that's I'll get off my
Brain dump
soapbox,
complete.
I suppose. Yeah.
Yep.
What was your takeaway from this one?
So it's been similar to me in my qualms with Kyler Murray in that, and it's similar to what Patrick Mahomes is doing, is that they're trying to do too much. And we've talked about game script a lot. We've talked about how there's so many plays that are impactful that are it's just one play that changes everything. And to me, I go back to, it was a 3rd and 2 and he took a 13-yard sack trying to run around, and Matt Prater had to kick a 51-yard field goal instead of a 38-yard field goal because he's trying to do more than he needs to. And those are the things that once he cleans that up, he's going to be spectacular. That first touchdown pass to Christian Kirk, rolled out of the pocket, running forward. I mean, he didn't set his feet because he never fucking sets his feet. But he put a dime on Christian Kirk. I'm still a little confused how, when we say the shins down versus the knees down, but whatever.
That always trips me up.
Yeah. But he had the D-Hop was D-Hop. I think that's the biggest asset that they probably have on this team, quite frankly. I'd never thought that I'd say a wide receiver is worth $25 million, but that dude, if he needs a new job, Dancing with the Stars is probably his calling. Because that first touchdown was amazing, and then to leave him wide open in the end zone on the second one was ridiculous. But then Kyler finished off with another great throw on his 4th touchdown. So I don't want to we're not taking anything away from Kyler. I think that's what we want to make clear here, is that he's got the talent, he's got the execution. It's that we need to get rid of the negative plays. And what we had talked about in the review or the preview, what do we call it? Was that Rodney Hudson being out was going to be a challenge, and there were 3 botch snaps that could have very easily been difficult. And he navigated it well. He didn't botch the snap and then throw it straight, 15 yards straight up into the defense like Patrick Mahomes. So no, it was a great outing by him. But to your point, I don't think that this is the 3-3 Browns that we thought they were going to be, right?
Yeah, this isn't the statement game that I think a lot of people thought it would end up being. And to one last point on Kyler there, I think similar to how we're now, the Cardinals should be graded on a different scale now. Kyler is as well, right? Like Kyler has put himself in that conversation, and now what you're looking at is, okay, is this guy, is he top 5? And I redid my I did a rough readjustment of my quarterback rankings based on where I feel everyone is right now, and I've got him at 5. I think maybe in a couple weeks, if you wanted to do a mid-season thing, we can sort of redo our rankings and figure out where we're at. But if you're going to be in that conversation, then you're going to be judged the way that these guys are judged. And he's doing it. The Cardinals are winning. This wasn't the convincing win to me that I was hoping it would be a couple weeks ago. Biggest takeaway: I can't believe that the Browns are going to have to pay Baker Mayfield. All right, I have one last.
Well, I mean, he had that Hail Mary at the end of the half, which I think there's been a little bit of lag here. Again, not going to conspiracy theories or scripted, but there were 3 wide receivers and only 2 defensive backs in the end zone at the time, and then one of the defensive backs, like, fell down at the front of the end zone, not even in the play.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically 3-on-1, absolutely terrible defense, and then I think, I don't know if I've already said my biggest takeaway, but my biggester takeaway then, just in case, is that we don't need fucking Cliff Kingsbury there, and that's the biggest thing to me, is get
Yeah.
rid of that asshole. And
Yep.
then honestly, we're probably all more on the Kyler train just because the
Totally.
only reason I've been rooting against Kyler, and not rooting against, that's not, but been as harsh as I have been, is because I would like to see what he can do without somebody that, in my opinion, is holding him back in Cliff.
Yeah, Cliff makes it really hard, I think, to evaluate him sometimes. So on that that Hail Mary, uh, this was a next gen stat that came out of it. The ball traveled 66.4 yards in the air, which is the longest completed pass in the next gen stats era, which is since 2016, so not too long. But we talked about how they run that commercial where they show the Hail Murray and they say it was like a 16% catch probability or 16.8% or something. And we're always like, how the fuck is that true?
Yeah.
Apparently the completion probability on this play was 15.4%, which I still don't understand. But the longest air yards on a completed pass in the next gen stats era. So there you go, Baker. You at least have that. Hopefully, when you take that to the negotiating table, the Browns respect it. But like you said, it was just kind of a weird play, and somehow the Cardinals didn't have enough people back there. Yeah, another just weird game. Like there were many
And
this week.
And just as a preview, fucking us up because now we've got to pick on a short week. Thursday Night Football, Browns versus Broncos, when we're down top 2 running backs. Baker Mayfield's in a sling.
Mm-hmm.
OBJ's not banged up. Jarvis Landry might not be back. And this is, as much as I love football, that Thursday night game really, really fucks teams when
It's
they get
brutal.
banged up. Like, you can look
Yeah.
at it as a positive and say, oh, they get 10. It's a mini bye week. They get 10 games on the backside, but trying to turn around in 4 days, especially if one of those days ends up being a travel day, that's asking a lot for these people. So well, long story short, we appreciate you, bro. Right? What you're
Yes.
doing here,
Yes. We
balling
do.
out on short notice, because that's a tough turnaround. I know
Yep,
I worked out
absolutely.
last year and I'm still feeling it.
um, all right. I think we can maybe close out on that. What game would you like to go to next?
I don't even know that it's a game. So Zach Wilson wanted to pay his mom to get off of social media. Can Patrick Mahomes take his $500 million contract and pay his fucking family a stipend to just shut the fuck up? Because his brother dancing on Sean Taylor's, tribute logo in
Mm-hmm.
Washington football team, for the Washington football team, is absolutely egregious. Randy Mahomes was clamoring about how the interception to Tyreek Hill, which we've already talked about, Tyreek Hill is not a wide receiver for this very scenario, shouldn't be an interception against her son. It should be a fumble or something. And I just don't understand how that's better than it being an interception.
She's saying
And
it should
then
count as a fumble for Tyreek.
I don't know. She didn't elaborate. You only get like 140 characters or something, so
Ah,
it's a tough medium. And then Brittany Matthews constantly, which is his fiance, fighting with the fans. I just shut the fuck up, that family. Like, Patrick has gotten away with a ton of throws. He's an incredible athlete. He's an incredible quarterback. He's a risky quarterback, and that's what
mm-hmm.
has so far it's helped him again more than it's hurt him. And this year it's finally catching up with him a little bit. He's got 8 interceptions and his career high is 12. It's because he's never been secure with the football. He's always been throwing things up for grabs, and he's had a lot of help. And the Tyreek's typically, got 3 to 4 yards of separation on his routes. He's got Travis Kelce, who's a great target to be able to hit. And when the going gets tough, just shut the fuck up, Mahomes family. I'm sorry.
Yeah. The Chiefs end up winning this game 31-13. There was a moment in this game, I think, after that really egregious Mahomes interception that people were like on Twitter freaking out a little bit. And they're like, holy shit, are the Chiefs like broken? And I saw people already talking about, they're like, well, let's see. Patrick Mahomes is only guaranteed X million on his contract. Could the Chiefs get out of it? If I was like, whoa, okay, let's pump the brakes a
Can
little
they
bit.
trade him for Baker Mayfield?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't have a ton to
another
say on the game because it was a
right.
shellacking. It was that Washington defense, for all the preseason hype that goes wrong, that's probably the most surprising to me, that they just have not been
Mhm,
able to do anything. But the game
mhm.
was nothing to write home about. I just had to, call out that Jackson is a piece of shit for doing what he did, and then the family, like, I mean, Giselle did it with Tom Brady. That we're not saying that anybody's immune to this, but I also think that Tom Brady probably had a long conversation with her, and I don't think that we've heard from her much since calling out that Wes Welker failed catch in the Super Bowl. So let's
Yeah,
just have a conversation. If you want to pay them $10,000 a Sunday to not tweet or touch social media, I think that that's a good investment for you, Patrick Mahomes.
I'll take that deal if anybody wants to do that for me. That'd be great. Um, all right, let's move on. There was only one other game
We'll move our
really on the.
podcast to whatever day you want.
Yeah, exactly. There was really only one other game on the slate that was actually competitive. It was the Vikings at the Panthers. The Vikings end up winning 34-28 on a touchdown in overtime. Um, this game was just hilarious. Like the Vikings can never make anything easy. They were up 11 with less than 11 minutes left in this game. Their kicker misses a kick in regulation again. Thankfully, they didn't need to kick in overtime with the Osborne touchdown. But I saw somebody post this question on Twitter, I think today. But where would you rank Kirk Cousins right now? We've mentioned that he's been playing really well this year. He had been in the MVP conversation. I think he's probably taken a step back below some of the other top names. But I don't know if this exercise works for you. I can maybe give you a couple names and you tell me, is he better or worse than this guy? How does that sound?
Sounds good.
All right. Derek Carr.
I mean, statistically better. I'd prefer Carr, but statistically better for sure.
Okay. Joe Burrow.
I have not been riding Burrow's dick as hard as you have. I'm not after the chase, so I would put Cousins ahead of Burrow.
Okay. Carson Wentz. I know you've been on Carson's D.
I have been
And he's
I have
been
been
playing
high
well.
on Carson, and he's been playing well. The track record from Kirk Cousins versus the track record from Wentz is why I would pick Cousins over Wentz at this point.
Okay. So I think you've probably got him squarely where I would have him as well, which
Probably, yeah. Preseason rankings, I think we had him as 12 to 16. I don't remember at this point.
he was, for me, he was 14th preseason. And right now I've got him at 11. So
Okay.
he's moved up, for me anyway, ahead
Justin
of Derek
Fields still out of the
Carr.
top 10.
Yeah. He's moved up ahead of Derek Carr. He's moved up ahead of Baker Mayfield. And Herbert has moved up higher on my list as well. So yeah, I mean, bottom line is like Kirk is in this position where I think he's with a good team. You can win with Kirk Cousins. He was always for me that barometer before where it was like, okay, he was your baseline. If you have a quarterback that's better than him, you're probably in good shape. If you don't, you need to be finding a new quarterback. I think he's elevated himself like a tick above that. He's probably in that conversation now to where if he's your guy, you can win with him depending on the pieces around him. I think for me, and we just shat on Baker, for however long, Baker is probably that guy now where if you don't have a quarterback better than Baker Mayfield, you should probably keep looking. So, it's the Vikings are just, they're 3-3. So are the Panthers. They're going to be in that mix, I suppose. They're just like something about them is just so off. And despite the fact that they've got a legitimate quarterback, they've got some legitimate pieces in Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. But ultimately, we know too, right? They missed that kick against the Cardinals that would have won it. They've had some other close calls this season, but they escape with a win at Carolina.
Is this Zimmer then? Is that the problem? I mean, you've got to your point, you've got Jefferson, you got Thielen, you've got some offense there. Dalvin Cook is healthy right now, and you're just eking things out. I'm not high. I haven't really been that high on Sam Darnold. I want to be clear on that. I thought that he could have a little bit of a career resurgence. I didn't think he'd be the reason they would win, but
Right.
PFF is crediting the Panthers with 7 drops in that last game, and
Holy
it
shit,
took
really?
overtime to beat the Carolina Panthers. And that's with Kirk Cousins balling out for 370 plus yards. So to me, that comes down to coaching, right? Because Zimmer's supposed to be that defensive guru that gets the job done, and right now that's not the case. You can't keep. It's a 3-phase game, and they've been sucking at special teams, and something needs to change there if they want to be successful, because they could easily be they're close enough to being a 6-0 team, right? They haven't been blown out by any game. Hasn't everything been basically a end of the game score for them?
I think so. I'm trying to remember what their score was against Denver. But regardless, yeah, they've been pretty competitive. Zimmer's tough because I think he's a good coach, and you don't necessarily want to just dump good coaches because there's plenty of bad ones out there. But I don't think he's a guy that gets you over the top necessarily without the pieces in place. And I think he'd be a great DC somewhere,
Right.
for damn sure. But yeah,
It's
he
like
might
anything
be.
in life. It's not necessarily that you can be great at what you do, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be great at the level above what you are, right? Some
Right.
people are managers and some people are executors. Just to recap here, they lost by 3 to the Bengals, 1 to the Cardinals on that last second missed field goal, and then they lost by 7 to the Browns in that low scoring 7-14 game. So if you're going to look at a team that, should that Cardinals game have gone differently, I think that we would be talking about the Minnesota Vikings very differently as well.
Yeah,
And this
well,
was
they'd be in the driver's seat for one of those wild card spots, right? In the NFC.
and this was the make it or break it game that we had called out. And now that I've seen the outcome, I'm not sure that it's a make it or break it for either team, because Minnesota is kind of who they're 3-3, right? You can go either way on
Yeah.
both of these teams at this point. And I didn't see enough from the Vikings to say, okay, they're legit. And I didn't see enough from the Panthers to say, no, they're collapsing. That Christian McCaffrey injury is absolutely crushing them. But that defensive backfield is going to get even stronger now that they're going to get Stephon Gilmore back, and it's going to be exciting. Quite frankly, I think both these teams will keep it interesting long enough to be in the conversation in the NFC.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams that are 3-3 right now in the NFC. They'll all be battling it out. It'd be definitely interesting how that plays out. All right. This wasn't much of a game. I'll dump a couple quick thoughts for you on Packers Bears. There was one exceptional moment which I do want to call out in this one, but
Is that going to be the offsides play?
no.
Okay.
Although that was pretty bad, but I feel like I've seen this Bears Packers game 100 times. Like, the Bears score early and the game's close and they get some late life from the offense, and then they need the defense to get a stop, and Rodgers just steps on their throat. And I loved this moment. So Rodgers runs in the touchdown and he yells, "I fucking own you." Or no, "I fucking owned you my whole life. I still own you, to the Bears fans. To which after the game, he said he blacked out, but he just remembers crossing the goal line and some lady sitting in the front row was just giving him double birds. And that was his response, which, to be fair, he's not wrong. So I made a joke on Twitter, I think, when it talking fan, and he was trying to let them know that even though they publicly own the team, he's the real decision maker within the organization. So little jab back at Packers front office sitting in the stands at Soldier Field there. But otherwise, pretty uneventful game. Not much to get into with Justin Fields. He keeps making strides each week, but still hasn't had a breakout game yet. And the Packers are cruising. They're 5-1. That first week loss, to the Saints just looks like it was 10 years ago. It's going to be
multiple teams that there's multiple teams that look like week one was an aberration, right? Like obviously the Saints aren't what they thought they were. In contrary to
Pittsburgh,
that, obviously Green Bay is who we thought they were. Yeah, Pittsburgh against Buffalo. Tampa Bay barely eking it out against the Cowboys. I mean, now the Cowboys are on a 5-game win streak. So week one's a toss-up. And I think that's something that's going to be more and more prevalent going forward as we get fewer and fewer preseason games, as we ultimately end up with an 18-game schedule, most likely.
Yep.
Still happy with the Fields pick, I assume?
Yeah. I mean, I've honestly seen nothing from him that worries me. There were moments I remember in 2017 with Mitch where it was like, okay, how much of this is rookie just feeling out? How much of it is a terrible coaching staff and, offense with John Fox and Dowell Loggins? But he looked slow. He looked scared. Justin seems to be adjusting fine. I mean, his lone interception was on a busted call that probably should have been defensive offsides. He thought he had a free play, chucked it deep, got picked off. Him and Robinson weren't on the same page. He put together a really good drive in the fourth quarter, and I was hoping that he would get another opportunity to build on it, but the Packers put the game away. I think he looks fine. He's in his fourth start. He hasn't gotten first team reps prior to being the starter, unlike some of these other guys that have started from day one and were getting reps in preseason. So I feel good. I feel like he's going to.
Well, we're not talking about Trevor Lawrence in that, right? So
had the split with with Gardner Minshew. Yeah,
no, but
I feel like at some point they're go for it. Yeah,
no,
I just feel like at some point he's going to. They're gonna have to let it rip a little bit. You know what I mean? He had his most dropbacks of the season with 37. He only had 27 pass attempts because he ran it a few times and there were some sacks. But and they're not going to be able to run the ball against Tampa next week, so they're going to have to throw, and they're probably going to be down. So it's going to be interesting to see next week.
Yeah. And another preview. I thought the spreads were big this week. Spreads get even more massive next week. I mean, I think Cardinals are opening up as 17-point favorites against the Texans. So everything's terrifying. But speaking of teams in the NFC North, or the NFC North that have quarterback problems, this was the first time that the Detroit Lions did not look competitive, which was surprising to me. Bad look for them. And then transitioning quickly into the NFC East, Daniel Jones is back. I thought we lost him after his first couple games without any turnovers, and then he decides to plop 4 of them in this game. He actually put the ball on the ground twice and 3 interceptions. Only lost 1 of the fumbles, but now he's officially at 45 turnovers and 33 career starts. And if I was the Giants, I'd be looking at not only moving on from him, but moving on from some of the other coaching staff at this point, and maybe even the GM, because Saquon Barkley is back on the mend. And I mean, somebody ultimately has to be accountable for using that high of a draft pick on an asset that's just not there for you at a position where that's to be expected, quite frankly, right? Like we talk about it all the time. The quarterbacks are the most protected But after that, the running backs are probably the least protected, right? They're the ones that you look at them and you're like, why aren't they getting targeting calls for lowering their head and plowing into a linebacker, right? So that game that definitely got away from them. Matt Stafford looked good, but I don't know how you don't look good against that Giants defense at this point.
Yeah,
Any of
he had
the
4
games
touchdowns.
for you want to touch on?
Yeah. Let's see here. I
think we
Raiders,
got to
Broncos.
Props to the Broncos or the Raiders for persevering through all of that this week.
Yeah, so they win 34-24. I think there was probably a little bit of like a come together moment in that locker room following all the Gruden stuff. They always play the Broncos tough though. And, I don't remember off the top of my head what the spread on this game was. I'm assuming the Broncos were favorites, but
yeah, I believe it was -3.
3. Okay. So yeah, great bounce back for the Raiders. I thought we saw Teddy maybe come back to earth a little bit. He's been playing really well this year. That was just a tough situation, I think, for everybody involved in that game with the Gruden stuff this week. So other than that, we briefly mentioned Indy blows out Houston 31-3. Did this game even happen? Wentz was the highest graded passer per PFF this week. And my other takeaway from this game is that Kyler is going to absolutely
11
pop
completions
off.
Because that's all that they needed. So yeah, maybe Kyler will pop off, or maybe he'll throw 6 times and get 6 touchdowns. Who knows?
For 200 yards.
Yeah. And the Texans actually released Whitney Merciless this afternoon in a mercy play to him, most likely. Let him actually latch on with the team. It probably is depth at this point, but the fall from grace for Houston has been swift, and I don't think, just to wrap it back to the Deshaun Watson talk, that the Washington football team is in play since he has no trade clause. But why the fuck not Washington make a play at this point? Because all of your other press is absolutely terrible. So I just don't know why you wouldn't bother just throwing this in
Donald
the fire
Trump
right
strategy.
Now. You're going to forget about one of our fucking indiscretions if we pick him up. So I'd put your bids in now if I was the Washington football team, because as much as I wanted to see Heineke succeed, he definitely is not there. And then the Fitzmagic is definitely not a long-term solution. So that would be my advice to the Washington football team. I won't put it in writing in case it ever comes back to me. Not very secure with their emails at this point. So that'd probably be my last take on the evening.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have 2 extra points here I want to make, both of which are not football related. So if we're done with the games, the first one I just want to note. So this Sunday, just personal note here, that my fiance and I are big supporters of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. We did this community event on Sunday. It's normally a walk, but it was just a drive-through event because of COVID this year. We've got a team set up through the AFSP's website. It's a donation page. Money goes towards mental health and suicide prevention resources. I'm going to put the link in the description. Thankful for anybody that wants to contribute there. And then lastly, we officially have National Pastime merch on Amazon.com, and I will drop in the link to National Pastime merch in the description on this episode as well. Only a couple things up there right now, but I plan each day to add a little bit more. So if you want to rep the pod, let's do it. Thanks to Amazon, Merch by Amazon, for helping us out with that stuff. So with that, that's all I got. Toaster, anything else before we get out of here?
Are you going to buy me a shirt?
Maybe if this parlay hits.
All right. Yeah. Well, Enjoy listening to the greatest podcast in the nation, as Jamal Adams would say.
Yeah, hell yeah. I like it. I like it. All right, everybody. Thank you. And we will see you on Thursday for our week 7 primetime parlay picks and preview. Have a good one.